Hello, this is Diane Eddington from Mountain Goat Soap Company. Today I'm going to do a video tutorial on how to make these flower soaps. I've been making a lot of these and posting pictures on a couple of Facebook groups, and lots of people have asked me, how do you do that? And there are some videos on YouTube on how to do this technique. There's a lot of ways. Terry Ensley from Tree Marie Soap Works did a great video using a different kind of tool and some strings, and I've seen other people do videos showing how to use Pringles cans, PVC pipe, and other things like that, and tools that they've made out of sink strainers and whatnot. But I'm going to be using a tool today that is made by Belinda Williams from Love Your Suds. I hope you can see this. She is the inventor of this technique and then also makes these tools. I'm going to include a link to her site and where you can buy these tools in the description below the video, so you can buy one if you would like. The other thing, before I get started in actually making and pouring the soap, I'm going to be using a silicone mold. When I first started making these, I was using a PVC pipe that my husband cut for me. It's a little problematic. You have to line it. Sometimes it comes out easily, sometimes not. I know other people have used Pringles cans with some success. I'm not sure how many times you can use a Pringles can before it's not any good anymore. So these molds, it's a silicone mold. I got it on Amazon. I'll put the link where I got that in the description. It's about $20, so if you're going to be making any amount of these soaps, it's just worth it to spring for the mold. It comes apart really easily, the soap comes out really easily, and once you see how long it kind of takes to pour this, you'll be happy that it comes out easily and doesn't wreck the soap. You can see on this mold I'm holding the sides together with some binder clips. That's just a safety precaution because the mold comes apart here at the sides, and what I don't want to happen is after I have it full of soap and I tap it on the counter, if it splits open and spills, it would be a bad thing. So that's just a little safety precaution. The way that I pour the soap for this technique is I'm going to be using squirt bottles. They are these kind of things that you can buy at the grocery store. You know, they're like $1. I cut the, they're for ketchup and mustard or whatever. I cut the little leash off, or the thing that covers the tip, because I don't need that. And I've knocked them over more times than I can count if I catch my hand on it. So I cut those off. So I'm going to be using these. I've seen other videos where people put bags inside them. I don't usually have any trouble cleaning them out, and I have a dishwasher, so I rinse them and throw them in there, and they come clean pretty quickly. So I don't use bags in those either. So I'm going to start mixing up the soap just so that you can see the trace that I use to get it to make a nice design. I'm going to be using 4 colors today. There are some micas from Nurture Soap. One is Celadon. I'm going to be using black and white, and then an azure or a blue color in the soap today. So I'm going to start mixing it up. I'll put the recipe for the soap that I'm using in the description. This is also, it's a slow moving recipe. It does have a little bit of palm oil in it. But you need it to be fairly slow moving, because by the time you mix up the soap, put it in the pitchers, color it, add the fragrance, get it in the squirt bottles, and then start pouring it, you need it to be still kind of fluid. So I'm going to start mixing this up really quickly. Pouring my lye water in. For you veteran soap makers, you know this, but this is only my 2nd video that I've ever made on YouTube. And I have lots of friends and family who are not soap makers that are kind of interested in soap, or at least want to see me make soap. So there it is. You can see I'm just mixing it enough with the stick blender to get to emulsification. It is pretty thin, maybe just a tiny bit more. I want it to still be pretty thin, but obviously not coming apart. So I'm going to just stir it around with the head of the stick blender and keep it pretty fluid. this is still pretty thin. You can see that it's completely emulsified and not coming apart. So I'm going to put this away. And I'm going to be using 4 colors, so I'm going to divide this up between my 4 pictures. And I'm just going to eyeball it. I've done enough recipes with 4 colors that I kind of know how much it is. You can see as I'm pouring it that it is still pretty thin. It's not super thin, but it's still too thin. This is too thin to pour for it to get the design. So, but by the time I get the colors mixed up and the fragrance in and get it into the squirt bottles, it will be the right trace to get a nice design. So I'm going to be using some titanium dioxide for the white. So I'm just going to add these colors. I'm using an azure blue. I'm using a celadon green. And I am using black oxide in this recipe. I have tried some using activated charcoal. It doesn't stay as black as I would like for enough contrast, so I normally use the black oxide in these designs. I call them flowers. It is a kaleidoscope shaper on Belinda's website, so I think they look like flowers, so I call them that. I'm going to mix these up really quick. You make these flowers, or the kaleidoscope design. It's helpful if you're using some contrasting colors. Makes the design turn out a little bit nicer. So I think that these will have some nice contrast. I've also seen some videos where they've attached kind of like a pipette thing to the nozzle of the squirt bottle so that you can be more accurate in pouring. Which is good, except this is the great thing about using this tool, which, I'm going to pick it up here just again. You'll see that it's attached to this rod. This rod is like key to making this design and being super accurate. There's also some videos that show a funnel pour, which involves setting a funnel over the top of the mold and just pouring the soap down through the funnel, which is supposed to keep the pores centered and make a nice design. I'm adding the fragrance. This is a well-behaved fragrance in soap because you don't want anything that's going to accelerate trace. You don't want anything that's going to cause it to rise. This is a fragrance called Glacier Falls from Nature's Garden, and it does work beautifully in soap. No discoloration, no acceleration, and it has a really, really nice scent retention, so I like to use it for these type of designs. Mix the fragrance in. Okay, everything's pretty mixed up. You can see that it's still fairly fluid, and this is still too thin to pour, so by the time I get it in the squirt bottle, so I'm going to put 1 color in each squirt bottle. This particular mold holds about 30 ounces of soap. I usually make 32 because inevitably some get stuck in the bottle and you want to be able to fill it to the mold to the brim. So Brambleberry also makes a column mold very similar to the one that I'm using. However, if you get that mold and you order a tool to fit in it, it is slightly a different size because the tool has to fit down inside the diameter, and since they are, I think they're about a quarter or a little more than 1/4 of an inch different in diameter. The two sizes of tools, they are not interchangeable with the molds, so that you have to you know, be careful of which one you order. You can see that this is still pretty fluid, which is nice. Need a tiny bit more black, which is not bad. Okay, so I've got all these in a squeeze bottles, and I'm going to get ready to pour it. So let's see if you can see this. So I'm going to put the tool down in the mold. The great thing about this tool, that it has the rod, it has little nuts here that hold this tool in place. So I know that some tools in some videos, getting the tool to stay at the bottom and then having a way to pull the tool out when you're done pouring can be a little problematic. To make the best design, you want to be able to pull the tool up through the soap and make the design, and you want the tool to stay level, so having it at the end of this rod is very helpful. And then also at the bottom of this mold, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little tiny indentation, and this little rod fits very nicely in there and keeps the entire thing centered so that when I start to pour the soap, it's not wobbling around. So I've put the tool down into the mold, and you can see the rod is sticking out of the top. And here's where this technique's a tiny bit different from other things that I've seen on other videos. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do first, and then I'm going to stop the video and I'm going to reposition it so that you'll have a little bit better view of what I'm doing. But I'm going to pour the soap using these squirt bottles. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to the top of this rod, and I am going to put the tip of each squeeze bottle against the rod, and I'm going to squeeze the color out, and it's going to swirl around this rod and go down to the bottom. So I'm not actually dropping or squirting the soap directly into the mold. It's going to cling to the rod, and it's just going to roll around that and go down and to the bottom, and it's going to pool, you know, and make a perfect circle. So that way you don't have to worry about the soap breaking through to the other layers, and you get a perfect pour every single time, because the rod is obviously in the center. So as long as you're touching the nozzle of the squirt bottle to the rod, it's going to, you know, just dribble down there, and then create a small pool of soap, and then you can decide how big or small you want those. So I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to reposition the camera so that hopefully you can see as I start to pour how that works. Okay, I'm going to start to pour the soap. You're not going to be able to see at the very bottom when I first start, but then hopefully as it starts to fill up, you'll get the idea. I've got my squeeze bottles lined up in the order that I'm going to pour them. I'm going to do it white, blue, black, green, and I'm just going to start with the white and then just alternate those, and you'll see it's not very much soap at a time. So I'm going to put the tip of the squirt bottle against the rod, and I'm going to squeeze gently, and you can see hopefully that the soap is just rolling down the rod and it's pooling into the bottom, making a perfect circle. So the end of the soap is always not very good, so right now I don't really care how much soap I'm getting. I just want to fill up the bottom, but I am going to switch off. And it does not take very much soap at a pour, and you'll see I will try and speed up this video when I'm done, because it does take a lot of pours. It's just a tiny bit of soap at a time. And I'm taking my time because I don't want to accidentally squirt too much soap in, and then it drops in there and makes a big mess. Well, it doesn't make a mess. It's just not perfect. So you can see that the soap is just rolling down the rod right in the center of the mold and making circles. And since it's rolling down the rod and it's not falling that big distance, it's not breaking through to the other layers. And the few minutes that it took me to kind of set up the camera and get it oriented, was enough time for the soap to kind of set up just a tiny bit. And you'll notice when I'm pouring, it's not nearly as fluid as it was. It's kind of a medium trace, maybe a little on the thin side, but it is making beautiful circles. And again, I'm taking my time, and kind of one of the tricks that I've learned after doing it, and you'll see me wiggle this, wiggle the rod. If it's not making a perfect circle, if the soap is kind of on one side of the rod and not the other, I move the rod just a tiny bit in one direction or the other to make sure that I'm making a great circle. Of course, there's a million ways to make this design. I've seen many videos where people just squirt the soap in not really an organized way, and the effect is still great. It's just such a fun thing to do, and people think you're super talented to make those designs when you pull this tool out. So you can see I'm just switching back and forth, back and forth. I'm going in the same order. I'm doing these colors in this order because it's, you know, keeps the contrast between each layer or each circle. So again, I'm doing white and then blue, then black, and then the celadon green, which is lovely, and blue and green are my favorite colors, so I make a lot of these designs in those colors. You can see how many times I'm pouring each one. And again, the trace is pretty good, so it's landing there at the bottom, it's making a circle and pushing the soap out to the sides, making rings, which you'll be able to see through the mold when we're done. This fragrance is really nice too. It smells delicious. You know, so I've already done a ton of pours. I'm not even halfway up the mold yet, so you want to have enough time. I'm moving kind of quickly. You don't want to dilly-dally. I'm being careful about making the circles, so it just makes a more uniform pattern when you pull the tool out. If the circle's not perfect, you can jiggle the rod just a tiny bit. It moves some soap so that the circles are nice. I make the circles different sizes. I don't really do the same thing every time. So it makes for a more interesting set of soaps if not everything is exactly the same. So I might squirt one color for a couple of seconds and the other color for a little bit longer to make different size circles, so they're not all even, but they are all circles. We might be getting soon. We might be getting close enough. Well, we're not quite halfway. You can see I'm just switching colors. Dribbling it down the rod, lands in the center, makes a circle. It's taken a little bit of practice. I've just gotten better at kind of jiggling the stick or the rod that's attached to the tool to keep the circles nice. And hopefully you can see the soap just swirling down the rod instead of just falling in. A little bit more than halfway full in the mold now. Takes a little bit of patience. After I've been pouring for a while, I kind of get antsy and start pouring a tiny bit more soap. You shouldn't do that. Turns out better if you just are patient and do the same thing all the way to the top. Oh, I think these colors are going to be lovely. Of course, they are my favorite. Okay, and we're back. It's time to unmold this, and I'm sorry I had a little video snafu yesterday when I was pouring. I actually got the low battery warning on my phone, and it stopped and didn't do what I wanted it to. So anyway, you can see, I didn't get to say this yesterday, but you can see all of our million little pores created these lovely layers. So I'm going to try and unmold it. Hopefully this goes well. It's been about 18 hours. Hopefully this is enough. Taking the binder clips off. This is the beautiful thing about this silicone mold, is that generally the soap comes out pretty easy. But we'll see. It's always a test. I'm just sliding my fingers here and breaking the little airlock. You can see that the soap is releasing very nicely so far. Just working my fingers down on the sides of the mold to get that to release. Got a tiny bit of soap stuck, but overall it's pretty good. Of course I'll have to clean up this edge. I don't know if you can, well, you'll be able to see. There's a little bit of soap there that squeaks into the crack in the mold. Take that out. Oh, this is lovely. There you can see our soap. Okay, I'm going to try and cut it. I just have a wire cutter. I usually just cut the end off. And there's really no rhyme or reason to where I cut. I normally cut them a little more than an inch wide. So I'm just going to cut the first end off. These are usually not the best. You can see that this was the top. And yay, look at this. It's beautiful. I'm just going to set them on this paper towel as I go. Just going to wipe some soap off this wire. I'm just going to scoot these down and start to cut them. Again, I'm not really lining them up anywhere. You can see that the designs are great. These are perfect. Well, as close to perfect as you can get. I just love doing these soaps. I hope you enjoyed watching this technique. Oh, and part of the video that got cut out was just me continuing to do that same technique all the way to the top. And I'm going to put some text because I also missed me pulling the tool out So it took me about 6 or 7 seconds to just take the end of that rod and pull that tool out of the soap. Aren't these lovely? These are so great. I love the colors. Love the colors. You can see I'm cutting them about 1 inch wide, as I said. It seems to be ideal. You can see how the layers poured really evenly. These are great. I'm loving them. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut the rest of these soaps. If I make another batch, I will try and do another video where hopefully that you can see all, pouring all the way to the top. But it's just the same technique all the way, using that rod as a guide and just pouring circles of color. These are just turning out really, really great. I could make these all day, every day. You can see they take a long time, so they're not really, you can't make 1 million of them, even though you would like to. Okay, I'm not going to cut the rest. Anyway, if you like the video, be sure and give me a thumbs up. You can subscribe to the channel. I will likely do another video on the soap so that hopefully the video part doesn't screw up. And thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.